The Buffalo Bills are going after yet another star player, and Von Miller is again doing his best to recruit him to Buffalo. I've made videos on the last 2 recruitments by Von Miller, but wasn't expecting a third, especially another one in the same offseason. Last season, Von actively recruited Odell Beckham Jr. on Instagram and got him a visit with the team, but nothing actually came to fruition. And then just a month ago, we had the rumors about Derrick Henry potentially being available, and Von Miller again poking some fun, posting a picture of him working out with Henry with a Buffalo emoji and a question mark, getting fans to believe maybe Derrick Henry is on his way to Buffalo. But now there's a new target for Miller and the Bills, and it is DeAndre Hopkins, and this might just be the most realistic target yet. But first, how did Hopkins even get on the market to begin with? Well, let's go all the way back to his Texans days, where he was drafted with the 27th overall pick in the 2013 NFL Draft. It was pretty apparent right when he stepped onto the field that D-Hop was going to be a star in the league. He put up 800 yards as a rookie, but came back the next 2 seasons and put up over 1,000 yards and emerged as one of the best playmakers in all of football. What's even crazier to me now looking back is how much production he was able to put up with the quarterbacks that he was playing with. In 2013, he had Matt Schaub and Case Keenum throwing him the ball. In 2014, he had Ryan Fitzpatrick. 2015, he had Brian Hoyer along with 3 other starting quarterbacks that year. And then, of course, the absolute blunder that the Texans organization had when they brought in Brock Osweiler from the Denver Broncos in 2016. So he was putting up those types of numbers with some of the worst quarterbacks in the league year in and year out. And that wouldn't change until 2017 when the Texans drafted Deshaun Watson. After drafting Watson, D-Hop would have 3 incredible seasons for the Texans, 3 1,000-yard seasons in a row, including a career-high 1,572 yards in 2018. And there was no arguing at this time that D-Hop was not a top 3, top 5 wide receiver in football, and him and Deshaun Watson were really seen as one of the best quarterback and wide receiver duos in the entire NFL. But the entire complexion of D-Hop's career would change after the 2019 season when Bill O'Brien made one of the worst trades in NFL history, giving up D-Hop and a 4th-round pick for David Johnson, a 2nd-round pick, and a 4th-round pick, sending D-Hop to the Arizona Cardinals. And I can't stress enough how bad of a deal that was for the Texans. A bona fide top 3 receiver in his prime was practically traded for a 2nd-round pick. This trade began the downfall for the old Texans regime, but nonetheless, D-Hop would find himself in Arizona and continue where he left off from the previous couple seasons. He would put up 1,400 yards and 6 touchdowns with Kyler Murray, earning himself another Pro Bowl honor. But since that great 2020 season, I can't lie, things have been a little bit weird for the Cardinals and DeAndre Hopkins, and it's kind of why we find ourselves in the situation where we're at today. The 2021 season for the Cardinals as a whole was a pretty good year. They made the playoffs, they were 11-6, and for much of the season they were the best team in football, but they did kind of fall off towards the end of the year. And a lot of people argue that DeAndre Hopkins' knee injury, which kept him out of the last 7 games and the playoff game, was a reason for their huge downfall towards the later half of the season. The Cardinals would go 8-2 in those 10 games with D-Hop, but then to end the season they went 3-5 without him, so you can definitely see how important he was to that offense and that team as a whole. But going into this past year, the Cardinals had a lot of expectations, especially coming off of a playoff appearance, but unfortunately for the team, they had a lot of drama in the offseason, which I really think negatively affected them. The entire Kyler Murray contract saga was a lot, and then DeAndre Hopkins found out that he tested positive for PEDs and was going to be suspended for the first 6 games of the season. But things went terribly for the Cardinals this past year. They were one of the worst teams in all of football, finishing 4-13, and as a result they fired their GM, they fired their head coach, and it appears they're now in full rebuild mode. So knowing all of this, before reports even came out, people anticipated that D-Hop would be traded this offseason as he doesn't really fit the timeline of this team now. The Cardinals are not in win now mode, especially with Kyler Murray having to recover from a torn ACL. They'll likely keep him out of the first few games of the season, and how effective will he be right away anyway, coming off of that injury in his first season? Hopkins is also moving out of his prime as he turns 31 in June, so by the time the Cardinals are even ready to compete again, will D-Hop still be playing at this high of a level? Most likely not. So I get why the team is looking to move on from him and get the most value that they can, and all of that was confirmed when Jordan Schultz came out about a month ago and said the Cardinals' plan is to trade him. And then to further confirm what we basically already knew, their new general manager Monty Austin-Ford said that he had a conversation with DeAndre and DeAndre's representatives when asked about a potential trade at the scouting combine last month. The Cardinals have reportedly given teams permission to talk to Hopkins about a trade. So with the draft upcoming, things are really starting to ramp up about a DeAndre Hopkins trade, and there's a huge market for him, but there's a few issues in getting a trade done. For starters, Hopkins would not be a cheap acquisition for any team. In addition to the draft capital that it would take to acquire him, he'll also carry a salary of almost $20 million in 2023 and just under $15 million in 2024. His contract also includes a no trade clause, so he has veto power over any potential deal that will go down. Combined with his salary is his enormous cap hit, which is $30.75 million in 2023 2023, which is the highest on the Cardinals, as well as among wide receivers in the NFL, and the 7th highest in the league among any position, which is pretty ridiculous when you think about it. So any team that's likely going to take on DeAndre Hopkins' contract in a trade is likely going to have to restructure his deal and move around some pieces to ensure that the money works. So that in itself adds a degree of difficulty, but to make things even more complicated, there doesn't seem to be a huge consensus on what DeAndre Hopkins is worth. I think the initial belief for his trade value was a 2nd round pick or more, but that changed when Albert Breer suggested it could be more in line with what Brandon Cooks got traded for to the Cowboys, which was a 5th and 6th round pick. But then a conflicting report from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN told people that the price got jacked back up higher than it was before, and that the Cardinals are seeking a Christian McCaffrey type of package. Well, if we go back to last year and see what he was actually traded for from the Panthers to the 49ers, it was a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round pick in the 2023 draft, and then a 4th round pick in the 2024 draft. Fowler then went on to explain his point, saying teams have at least looked around at the luxury shopping, high-end wide receiver market, whether it's Hopkins or like Denver's Courtland Sutton. Talking to other teams, they say that Arizona has wanted a 2nd round pick and more, maybe even as high as the Christian McCaffrey package. We're talking 2nd, 3rd, 4th round picks. You have teams like the Bills and the Chiefs and big ticket teams that are at least looking, window shopping at potential options at receiver. On top of the big fish teams like the Chiefs and the Bills, there's also been some rumors that maybe the Baltimore Ravens or the New England Patriots could also be interested in trading for the 5-time Pro Bowl wide receiver. And honestly, it makes sense. I've already made a video on how weak this draft class is in terms of top wide receiver talent. So if you can adjust the contract efficiently and not have to give up a ridiculous package, why not go out there and get one of the best wide receivers in football? That's practically a no-brainer. So I think we'll see some more movement on this in the coming weeks around draft time, but the favorite to land Hopkins at this moment is the Buffalo Bills, and we gotta go back to social media to explain why. Just like the last 2 rumors of the Bills going after OBJ and Derrick Henry, Von Miller is directly involved because of course he is. There was a video posted of Von Miller and Hopkins working out together that picked up a lot of steam amongst fans across the NFL, and I would like to point out that Von Miller does have a lot of respect around the league. He's worked out with a ton of different people. What makes this one special will stay with me. About a week ago, Hopkins posted a picture of himself on his Instagram story with the lyrics to the song Buffalo Soldier. This is after all the speculation of D-Hop getting traded and the Bills being interested, and the workout video with Von Miller. So this may be a conspiracy, or this may be signaling for what's to come, but what I do know is that the Bills are interested, they desperately need another weapon on offense, and D-Hop is available for trade. Bills general manager Brandon Beane was also asked last week about potentially going after Hopkins, and he said we're always going to look for talent, and so we're going to look at anything and everything. Our name gets thrown in the hat of a lot of things, and we've done 1%. One person made one call and they looped us in and we offered them a contract. It's funny sometimes, but that's as far as I can get into. He's on another team. So he took the typical GM stance where he doesn't deny or admit they're going after him, but I personally think that they are doing their homework on D-Hop, and if the price is right and they can restructure that contract in a team-friendly way, they're going to make him a Buffalo Bill. But let me know if you think the Bills would get Hopkins, or if you think the team will strike out on acquiring star players in OBJ, Derrick Henry, and now DeAndre Hopkins. Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new. More draft and NFL content to come, but I will catch you guys in my next one.